Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to a not yet midnight edition of the Missing Wolves post-game podcast live stream thing. I'm your host, Andrew Dukowitz from Zone Coverage, and no guest on the pod today. Had a guest lined up, had to get a second guest lined up, and then kind of just decided, with everything going on in Minnesota and Minneapolis right now, it's probably appropriate to just make this kind of a quick game recap. I'll be doing it solo, so if anyone wants to engage in the chat, by all means. But first, I just wanted to address that, it's hard to do a podcast after something kind of insane happens in the city you live in. And I've only been doing these since about March last year, and I think I've had to start 5 of these podcasts with the public service announcements of prayers and thoughts and my spiel about how basketball is a escape and a distraction, and that's how I intend to keep my content, as an escape and a distraction, which I will be doing it again today. But it is certainly not lost on me that kind of regardless of where you're at or what you're doing in the country, this is just kind of a messed up time. And I'm not going to pretend to turn a blind eye to that. I'm just going to say kind of what I always say in these situations, that, everyone stay safe. Everyone, do what you need to do for self-care. Don't forget that you guys matter as listeners, me as a podcaster, everyone matters. If you're angry, if you're upset, call a friend, talk to someone. Don't let that stuff bottle in. If you're sad, frustrated, or any other emotion, it's important to talk about that stuff. That being said, basketball, as I've said, this is now the 5th time, has always been an escape for me. Whether it was a kid escaping a house in February to go dribble a ball in the driveway with gloves on, whether it's, in nursing school, having it on in the background as I'm cramming for exams, whether it's currently where I'm kind of living out this crazy dream, basketball has always been an escape and a distraction from the harder things in life. And when I started doing content, when I started writing, when I started doing all this, I wanted that to always be the focal point of things. This is one of the few places where you can really just get lost and enjoy a basketball game, enjoy something that isn't, so gray. It's pretty black and white. One team wins, one team loses. There's a home team, there's an away team. I cover the Timberwolves. You're going to hear the Timberwolves perspective. But again, even though this podcast, what I do, the content I put out, is meant to be a distraction from those bigger things, I did want to just start off the pod by saying, it's not lost on me how kind of messed up everything is right now. So I'm going to run a couple ad reads right away just to kind of reset. And then we'll talk some Wolves. But again, what I would just encourage, anyone out there, just be safe. And again, those feelings that you're feeling are valid, and talk to people. Because what I found through my life is when I let things bottle inside, whether it's grief, whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, and I don't talk about it, it doesn't get better. So that's my public service announcement. Again, we'll run a couple ad reads here just to reset the table at the 4:30 mark of the podcast. And then we'll get into talking some hoops, but just wanted to at least acknowledge everything that's going on in the city I've grown up in. Well, hello. Thank you, Livestream Andrew. This is Ad Read Andrew. And today we have Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, the presenting sponsor for the Missing Links podcast. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling strives to inspire people to follow their ideas, working with respect and understanding to create a quality, tailored result. Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, located in Blaine and serving in the North Metro area, is here to help you with your building and remodeling needs. I can say personally, thanks to Firehawk Construction and Remodeling, I have a beautiful deck in my backyard, and countless projects that I started, they finished. Get started on your new deck or remodel today by calling Isaac at 763-710-5686. And we're back with another ad read. This time for Pence Homes, the presenting sponsor of Hitting the Hardwood Network. From the best tools and technology to transparency throughout the entire process, Nate Pence and the Pence Homes team is the top choice for buyers, sellers, and is proud to support you and your home ownership goals. Get started today by calling 612-308-1122 or by emailing info@pencehomes.com. One last housekeeping note. Firehawk Construction does have a new phone number. It is in the show notes with the correct phone number, but for people listening or watching the stream, it is 651-315-4291. We're having a little bit of a warm spell in Minneapolis right now, so keep in mind that if you're in the North Metro area and when this warm spell turns from warm to freezing again, your pipes freeze, your back garden hose water spigot freezes, and all of a sudden your basement is flooding. They do house calls as well for emergencies. So keep that number handy, because you might be like me and my wife one day trying to turn the faucet on in August and find out that your pipes burst, and then you have gallons of water in the basement, and then lovely old Firehawk Construction shows up with fans. So let's get into the game a little bit here. Cleveland falls to Minnesota 131-122. Minnesota just, first half I think was kind of lackluster. Like first quarter, great. Starters played great. Julius and Jaden, everyone. Dante missed a couple shots, but like defense is always there. Second quarter starts, reserves come in late in the first quarter. Game gets really close. Really bad bench game at the end of the first quarter. I believe Naz Reid had one shot and no one else on the Pine had gotten a single shot off. It was just tough. Second quarter kind of continues that way. Cleveland ends up going into halftime with a 4-point lead, largely because the Wolves bench just could not get anything to go. Bones checked into the game, just was not great tonight. I think that's fair to say. Ended with a -7, 1 for 4 shooting. No turnovers, but just some weird fouls. Not a good Bones night. Also, I think now that we're past the first or second game of Bones, there is some of the things that you always heard about him in Denver, even with the Clippers, the kind of like main character syndrome, where he does just kind of call his own number pretty often, whether that's, inbound goes to him, he drives down the floor, takes that initial screen and just kind of jacks a three, or maybe getting it on the second action and not rotating the ball and just shooting it. I think we're starting to see some of those cracks on the offensive side where you'd like to see a little more ball movement, I think, with Bones out there, but also Bones is playing when Ant isn't on the floor. And I do think there's some directive to Bones of like, hey, you got to go get a bucket. Like there's not the scoring punch of Ant out there. Occasionally he's out there without Ant or Julius. Like it's a difficult balance, but I do think we're seeing some of those cracks. They go into halftime down 4, and third quarter they outscore the Cavs by 21, go into the fourth up 17, and kind of the rest is history. Cavs make a little bit of a run towards the end. Sam Merrill gets some just ridiculous kind of open threes out of nowhere that fell. But this was, to me, this is one of the first games of the season that no one on the bench showed up. You look at Nas, 9 points. He was -21 in the game, had 4 turnovers. 3 of those turnovers were like he could have shot a layup or a floater and just passed out of it for some reason. Just weird Nas Reid turnovers. Mike, I think this was kind of the best kind of consistent. This is like what we should be expecting from Mike at this point in his career, like 8 to 15 minutes, 1 of 2 shooting, has a couple assists, sets up the offense. I talked to Mike at shoot around before the game tonight because it really stuck out to me that in the Miami game, when Mike checked in the third quarter, it was just instantly kind of a tone shift of like, we need to get Jaden going. And they ran 5 straight plays for Jaden in that third quarter. And I think that's kind of the role for Mike now, is when he's seeing things on the bench or he sees a guy start to like lose engagement, like you put Mike in there and he's going to help someone else get going. But again, like he didn't really give the team a ton tonight. Jalen, I thought was pretty just as well. I mean, 2 of 4, finishes with 5 points, gets 3 fouls. A couple of them were just like you can't jump, you can't be so handsy type of things, which I know that's, Jalen's talked about it too, that's kind of the reason that he falls out of the lineup sometimes is when he has these weird fouls. So again, just a weird bench game from everybody. That being said, you can afford to have weird bench games when 4 of your starters score 20 points and Rudy Gobert goes 5 for 5 with 11. This was like the Jekyll and Hyde of the Wolves, kind of in my opinion. Of the starting lineup played excellent the entire game. Like Dante was getting open off of like off ball screens and kind of his dribble handoff stuff. Randall and Ant were working really well together. Jaden really got it going in the second half as well. Ant was pretty just dominant all throughout. Like the starting lineup of this team is to be honest excellent, like most games, but tonight especially I think this is probably the most connected they've played. And then you have the bench that, 6 minutes into the game when Mike and Nas check in, you just kind of feel that drop off. Third quarter as well. I think it was about the 7-minute mark or so into the quarter. Nas checks in shortly thereafter. Mike checks in, and you feel that drop off again. And then once the starters all come back in the fourth quarter with like 5 or 6 minutes left, it's just like, oh, okay, they're not going to lose this game. They just have way too much firepower. And I think that goes back to like a consistent like pain point with this team where you have, some people on Twitter, some national like analysts even looking at this team and saying like, should you trade like a Julius to get parts just to like reestablish your depth? And I think if you're looking at this Cleveland game, I mean, Cleveland's healthy now. They were the 1 seed in the East with almost this exact same roster, and the Wolves, for all extensive purposes, just played them off the court in the second half. It's hard to justify trading one of those starters when that is kind of the peak of this starting lineup's powers, is being able to beat like a home court playoff team like this. But the bench just does, like, something has to give, whether that is a trade to get a backup big in, whether that's a trade to get a more consistent point guard in. I'm not sure. I think listeners of the show know that my kind of tendency is looking more to that backup big, just as a change of pace type of guy. But like tonight, when none of them have it is tough, which Teresa mentions. Bench made her worried as well. Completely agree. There wasn't really any confidence in it. Again, Nas kind of got it going a little bit towards the end of the game or in the third quarter, but it was just felt like a slog whenever there was more than one starter out of the game, which, right now, as we're sitting here on January 8th, that's fine. If we're playing games in June, that's again probably fine, because this lineup could go down to 7 or 8 guys and all the starters are going to play 38 plus minutes, and the bench isn't going to be as needed. But like when an injury happens in February, when you're starting to maintenance these guys to get them into the playoffs in March and April, like you just need competent bodies that can be consistent. And I think if you're looking at like the conspiracy thread on a cork board, like that's why these guys get benched. That's why TJ's in and out of the lineup when he's healthy. That's why Rob isn't currently in the lineup. That's why Jalen's in and out of the lineup. That's why I kind of expect Bones will probably be out of the lineup at some point this season too, is just like you need consistency off the bench. And when you're not getting that, it's so hard to manage a game as a coach when it's like, well, I'm throwing in a coin flip. If it's heads, we're going to win by 10. If it's tails, I got to pull this guy and just hope that my starters can go. And that's not a great way to be in a position with a team, which I know this is taking a negative turn after a 9-point win against a playoff team in the East. But like, it was just so jarring tonight that I felt like it needed to be addressed a little bit more, of like, this bench has major concerns. And you look at the guys who didn't play, like Johan, I don't know if he's given you more than Nas did tonight. Like Rob, I think probably could have done what Bones did. Johnny Juzang, I know Wolves Twitter wants him to get a chance at some point, but like Leonard Miller, Joe Ingles, like they don't have an answer right now on roster, which is concerning. So I know there was a leak that I saw, not a leak, but like a report that I saw that the Wolves are open to chopping Rob Dillingham. And it's like, well, yeah, that is their only asset that isn't a starting player. So of course they're open to that. But who they can get for that, like what salary level player they can get for that is all kind of up in the air and kind of to be questioned, which again, I'm glad. I say it often, but like I'm glad I'm not Matt Lloyd or Tim Connolly, because that's going to be such a tough, narrow like window to thread. Window? Hole? What do they call the back of the end of pins? Not pins, needles. Needle to thread? Is it just the needle? It's probably just the needle. It's a really tough needle to thread. That doesn't sound right, but it's fine. Like it's just that's going to be almost like an impossible scenario of like you want to bring in somebody that's going to play minutes, but you also don't want to jeopardize the development of the young guys. You can't take a ton away from the starters. I mean, Nas has been playing 20 to 24 minutes the last couple of weeks. Like, you can't really take anything away from him. Mike, I think you could get closer to like 8, in the regular season, but it's just tough. I mean, Cole adds here in the chat, Rob Lenny can get about a $10 million player. Yeah, that's about it. And like the mid-level exception, I think was like 14 million this year. So like you're getting either like a lottery pick that hasn't worked out on a different team, thinking you can fix him, or thinking that he can bring value here. Kind of think almost like DeAndre Hunter on the Cavs. Like I know DeAndre Hunter got a new contract before he got traded, but like that type of thing where it's just like, yeah, there's something there, but like it just doesn't seem to fit for whatever the team they're on. Like we'll bring him in, rehab him, and see if we can figure out a spot for him. Or you're getting like somewhere between the veterans minimum and mid-level caliber player, which it's just tough. Again, it's a really tough area to get. Keon Ellis, that's the perfect example, Cole. Like that's literally the perfect example of guy on Sacramento that's probably underutilized. You can tell by watching him that there's something there. Like he's a high energy player. He like crashes hard on rebounds. He always, against the Wolves at least, he always seems to hit threes against us, but like he's not getting the minutes. So there's just something maybe weird going on in that situation. Like, can the Wolves trade him, get him in here, see what happens? Jock Landale for Memphis, when he gets his minutes, it's a good, usually performs pretty well. Grimes, yeah, I think Grimes makes a little bit more than that. Don't quote me on it, but like Grimes is another good example. Like it's that type of guy though, where it's, the Wolves organization would have to believe that bringing him into a different culture, or into a different like situation, role on a roster would change something for that guy, that he could make a meaningful impact. I mean, the other thing is, I think it was Andrew Carlson was on the show a week or two ago, of just someone's going to get bought out, like some guy that we're not expecting to get bought out, whether that's like a Kyle Anderson, a Kevin Love, like some veteran player that has a little left in the tank is going to get bought out. And maybe that's the guy. I mean, I think if you go back through the history of the NBA and you're looking at buyout guys, it's not a huge like hit percentage of like that guy coming in and just being a valuable piece on a playoff team. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like I can't really think of any. Maybe Daniel House for the Celtics, like when KG won his championship, but I can't remember if Daniel House was traded or if he was a buyout. But like there's not many of those stories where dude comes in, makes an impact. But like I don't think the Wolves need someone to make like this big impact. I think they just need someone that's stable, that like like another Mike Conley, that at least what you're going to get, even if it's not like a 10 out of 10 great night. It's between a 6 and an 8 every time they're playing. And then you still have kind of your wild cards, but then you have, at least if the wild card isn't going well, you have someone else you can throw in there. Because right now, if Nas, Jalen, and Bones all have a bad game, there's no one that they trust to throw out there, which is tough. Cole mentions in the chat, what would it look like if we get Kobe White? It's hard to see a Kobe White trade happening without either Dante being involved or Nas, I think, would be the other one. If you're trading Nas out, you're probably getting Kobe White and something else, which I don't know what that and would be. I'm not super in tune with Chicago's lineup, but like theoretically you could send Nas Reed out, you could get Kobe White in, and you could get like another $3 to $4 million guy. Wolves have the roster spot, so like again, theoretically that would work. The other side would have to be Dante. Like if the Wolves combined, let's just say, like, I'll be completely honest, Mike Conley's not getting traded. Like he just isn't. I would be more than cat trade stunned if Mike Conley got traded. So taking Mike Conley off the board, if you did Jalen Clark, Bones Highland, Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and Berenger, that gets you to like 14 million, maybe like between 12 and 14. And like if they were to somehow like put in like put in a dead cap trade hits or something like that, and you were to get Colby White back, you still have to be able to fill your roster with veteran minimum players without going into the second apron to not qualify as a repeater second apron. And second apron right now is like 3.5 million. So without it being Dante or Nas, it's realistically impossible. So again, then it comes down to like what does the organization value Dante as, which I personally can tell you, like, I value Dante higher than a Kobe White. Like, I think between Julius and Ant, they're doing a good enough job playmaking. Dante does so many other things for this team that I would be hesitant to break that up. But there's always that other side of it of like, maybe the organization does really want to pair Ant with a 25 to 27-year-old point guard that he can kind of grow and evolve with. And they're thinking 3 years down the line versus this season only. Like, that's what I don't know. And the Wolves, I think one of the best thing about it is they don't really have anything that ever gets leaked ever. So we don't really know. I can promise you that they're going to be linked to every trade that gets rumored between now and the deadline, because the Wolves do have the assets to make moves. I mean, they have the contracts, they have appealing young players, but Cole Dad's absolutely not. Pack mentality, that's too much. Likes Dante, the little things that he does, and Cole, no sir, we just need a good role player off the bench. Like, that's kind of where I'm at too, is like, I'm not Teresa as geez Louise. Yep. That's where I'm at too. Like, I think if they can just get a consistent 15-minute guy, and they, again, even for that guy, like I keep talking about how hard it's going to be to kind of thread that, but like, they have I think Rob still has some value around the league. Like, he just turned 21. He still has that dynamic scoring. Like, if you bring him into a different system where he's able to make more mistakes and you're not in the middle of playoff seeding, maybe, a team can talk themselves into it. Leonard Miller, like, we haven't seen him. So I do think there is something to that. Like, you look at Josh Minot this year going off in Boston, kind of off and on. A team, I think, could look at Leonard and just kind of be like, yeah, maybe that's a Josh Minot situation where there's just too many bigs on this team. He never got his chance. Let's get him into the building. Jalen Clark, I think, has a lot of value. Like, he theoretically in 3 or 4 years is going to be a really good 3-and-D guy. Like, that's really appealing in the league right now. And he's, I think, 22. Like, I think he's an asset. And even TJ, like, at a little bit older, I think people do look at him and see the aggression and kind of ferocity that he plays with, and would be interested in bringing him in. But then again, the devil's advocates, all of this is like the Wolves drafted and brought these guys in for a reason. Are they really willing to give up TJ and Rob to get someplace? Are they willing to give up Lenny and Rob? I mean, Lenny's like really well liked on the team. Locker is right next to Ant. Like, is it worth disrupting that stuff? So it's just a really tough place to be in. But yeah, Cole, I agree. They do need help off the bench. Champ mentions Dante is a $20 million guy. Give him an extension. Who are you going to find better in that price range? That's kind of my read on it, is like you're basically paying half price for a starting level guard or a really good sixth man. Best case being Dante's the starting guard. Worst case is that sixth man. And like, he does do so many things. Like, he rebounds hard, he defends hard, he gets into defenders, he fights over screens. Like, the guy has an insane skill set that when his shot isn't falling, he's still valuable, which I think that in and of itself is like, I wouldn't want to give up that, because you do need a certain amount of those like gritty guys, which honestly, like Rudy talked about in the locker room after that loss to Brooklyn, was kind of the difference between like this Wolves iteration and some of those Utah teams that he was on. Was the Utah teams were less talented but had more of those gritty guys, whereas this Wolves team is vastly superior in talent but maybe doesn't have as much of those gritty guys. Like, Dante's that gritty guy. If they're concerned about talent versus grit, you can't trade away your biggest grit guy, right? So it's going to be interesting. I know, I think it was last pod or maybe the pod before, of just, if I'm a Wolves fan, I'm looking just at like filter the entire NBA by cap hit and look between like $7 and like $9 million and see if there's names that you like there. And that's probably in the range that the Wolves are going for. Did want to touch before we get out of here, though, of just Jaden. Second game in a row where he looked awesome. The title is Jaden's gonna Jaden, because that's what he does, right? He's gonna hit an off the bounce dunk to himself when the game's like over. And I think if any other player does that, there's probably a couple people saying something to them afterwards. But Jaden just, nope. No one wants to touch that at all. Cole asks, how do you feel about Jaden's growth? He has been amazing to watch. Like, it's so hard. I wrote about this last year, of just like Anthony Edwards kind of skews everything. Like, Ant's growth is that of like a first ballot Hall of Fame, like top 75 player that is probably going to win an MVP before it's done. And like, his over under for championships is like 1.5. Like, that is, Ant kind of blows everything else out of the water. Jaden is much more like developing at a normal rate. Like, this is his 6th season in the year. He's starting to show more of an offensive game. He's starting to get better at playmaking. His defense is, still his best attribute, but he's, rebounding a little bit better. Like, everything's getting a little bit better. And for players like, your Paul Georges, your Kawhi Leonards, your, excuse me, Andre Iguodala's, excuse me again, this is kind of the trajectory that they take, where, you see flashes of these things in the first contract, like in the rookie level contract. Rookies, they might struggle. Sophomore season, they might struggle. Their 3rd and 4th years, you'll see these flashes. The 5th years, you'll see more stability. And then there's the 6th season, just almost leap that they take, where if you're tracking like Jaden to eventually be like an all-star caliber player, this is the trajectory, where like this season his scoring goes up 5 points per game, his assists go up 2 assists per game, his rebounds go up, his efficiencies go up, and then like it's kind of off to the races. But like, I feel like this is much more like Jaden's growth is so much more like normal than your Anthony Edwards or your Luka Doncic or people like that. Like, this is the growth of a guy that's going to be in the league for 17 years and is going to have probably a couple all-stars and is going to be on the all defensive team a ton. And it's just cool to see because, being able to be around these players, like Jaden just does seem to be like a really genuine human being. And like, he always talks that he's just a hooper. And I think that's all it is. Like, he just goes out there and hoops. And for someone that just loves basketball, like loves the purity of the sport of just like dudes having fun, like, it's been so cool to see Jaden grow this way. I will say the one thing Jaden, I think his next growth point will be is to have the aggression to call his own number more. Like, Ant after the game is like, we want Jaden to be aggressive. Julius after the game is like, yeah, this is what happens when Jaden's aggressive. Jaden after the game is like, yeah, I need to be aggressive. Like, everybody it kind of just has to continuously push this guy to be aggressive. Yannicus says Trey Jones, get it done, Tim. I mean, that I'm saying that's not a bad idea. Jordan McLaughlin not getting paid a lot. He's still out there playing. So like, maybe bring back J-Mac. We'll have 2 J-Macs again. Cole says we are so blessed to have a guy like Ant. It's crazy. And then you add Pippen to the mix like that. Again, Pippen kind of fired off a little bit earlier in his career, but Pippen also didn't come into the NBA until he was like 22, I think. So like, there is a little bit of a skew there, but like, that is like, it's hard not to see it, right? Like, when they're walking next to each other and you see the short, stocky guy that can score from anywhere, and then you have the kind of soft spoken, funny without wanting to be funny, lanky guy next to him. Like, it is kind of uncanny. They say time's a flat circle. Tony P, who is the best comparison player to Jaden at his peak? I don't know. I think Jaden at his peak defensively, I think it is very fair to say that he could be like a Paul George, Kawhi. Like, I mentioned Iguodala, like offensively, Jaden is nothing like Andre Iguodala, but like that level of like defensive force where he can play off ball, he can play on ball, he can play 1 through 5, he can defend anyone, he can defend small, skinny guys, he can defend like undersized centers. Like, I think Jaden's defensive floor is through the roof. Like, that guy, if he continues to develop defensively, if he continues to get better at not fouling, he could realistically be a like defensive player of the year candidate. Like, you don't have to get a ton of rebounds. I mean, Marcus Smart won it for goodness sake. Like, that's the type of defender he could be. I think right now he's deservingly like an all defensive level player, but like, there's just a difference between, Kawhi at his peak, Giannis, like these bigger kind of 6'8" to 6'11" guys that are able to defend multiple positions, and Jaden. But Jaden, I think, has all the potential in the world to get there. Tony P, actually, it's weird that you bring up KD because his offensive game is very weird. Like, he has the mid-range game because he's so tall and his arms are so long that he can shoot over anyone. Like, that is very Kevin Durant-y, where he can get to a spot in the mid-range. He can do these weird kind of slow step moves, these weird post jump shots that no one can really touch unless there's like a center on him because he's just so tall and long. But he doesn't really have like the post game that Kevin Durant has. He doesn't really have the like, put the ball on the deck and just go straight down. It's like that one similar spot that he has to Kevin Durant. Like, the 3-point shooting, I'm still not 100% sold on. Like, I know he's shooting well this season, but he still seems to, like, if he misses the first two, he's like hesitant to shoot that third one, which, I mean, Kevin Durant could be 0 for 9 from three, and he's still going to have full confidence he's draining the 10th one. So I don't know if it's like a Kevin Durant like offensive game. I would say, like, as weird as it sounds, again, there's, like, some slow-mo in there, like, he's able to make these weird pocket passes and these weird passes without looking. He has the slow step move that we talked about where he's able to just get to this weird floater under the basket. He can shoot significantly faster than slow-mo, but they're kind of the same style of shooter where it's like if they're having a bad night, they're not gonna just push it. Um, Josh brings up Brandon Ingram. That might be a good comp. Ingram, I think, has more of that like post fade and that ability to like get to the elbows and rise up, but like Jaden and Ingram are very similar. Um, I also heard like Paul George a lot. I'm just gonna dispel that. Like Paul George is like Jaden, I think is like, I don't think Jaden's ever going to be in a position where he can get 8 turnovers in a game. And I don't think Jaden would ever put himself in a position to get 8 turnovers a game. Whereas Paul George, I think, really likes to just have the ball dribble, set himself up, like get into his offense. Like, I don't really buy that one either. I guess all this is to say, like, I think Jaden's ceiling is like a 20 something points a game, like, scorer. I truly think that, that guy has the potential to score 24 to 26 every night. I just don't know what like offense he has because it's so unique. And it's that is part of it is like, oh, now we're just in the dark. So I'm gonna just finish this off real quick here as we're uh eventually gonna leave the building. But in the dark, I will say, like, I think Jaden's like peak is that of like an all-star level scorer, but I would say he's so unique in a league that doesn't have a lot of unique players in it. Like the league is so carbon copy, just 3-and-D guy, or you're a lead scorer, or you're a lead ball handler, or you're a rim runner. And Jaden just has all of these weird quirks to his game that sets him really far apart. And again, when you're in a league that's very carbon copied, it's hard to predict what he could be because he's so against the grain, which, like, that's honestly like that's just Jaden McDaniels, right? Like, he's against the grain all the time. Iceberg says Jaden will have a better peak than Brandon Ingram. Mikal Bridges is pretty fair. Like, I think, again, I think Mikal is a more willing shooter than Jaden, which, I mean, Mikal's also older than Jaden, so it's hard to like directly compare them, but like that's probably fair. Maybe Jaden has a little bit more of a ceiling, but probably pretty similar. Anywho, I'm going to wrap it up here since the lights are turning out on me. But if you joined into this late, it will get posted up on YouTube right away. For anyone in the room right now that is going to watch this right away, just full disclosure, I did do about 4.5 minutes off the top of just, talking why this is a distraction from life, not ignoring from life. So if you want to skip that, feel free to. The pod starts around 5-minute mark or so. Thanks everyone for listening though. We will be back after the noon game on Saturday, and I believe Minnesota Please Understand is going to be on that podcast with me. So again, appreciate all you guys, and we'll be back on Saturday.